Good evening and good night, traveler. With the Collector's Bounty event currently live in World of Warcraft, I thought it would be the perfect time to dive into the rich lore behind the dungeons and raids that drop some of the game's most coveted legacy mounts. Throughout this month, I'll be exploring the stories behind these iconic locations, places where not only epic loot awaits, but also unforgettable tales from Azeroth's past. I wanted to start from the very beginning, Vanilla WoW. Now, while the event technically includes the red Kirazi resonating crystal from Ankiraz, I've decided to skip that one. Why? Because unlike the others, that mount can't be used outside the raid. It just doesn't carry the same timeless appeal as the rest. That brings us to a place steeped in tragedy and fire, Stratholme. Once a holy stronghold and the birthplace of the Silver Hand, it is now a city of ash ruled by death. It's here that one of the rarest mounts of its time can still be found, Deathcharger's Reins, dropped by Baron Rivendare. Tonight, let's journey through the history of Stratholme, from its rise as a sacred city to its horrific fall during the Third War and the haunting remnants that remain in World of Warcraft today. Stratholme was the northmost and second most populous city of the kingdom of Lordaeron. It was here where the Order of the Silver Hand was founded. Today, Stratholme is the Scourge's capital in Lordaeron. The mad Prince Arthas ravaged the port city in the Third War, and the Undead moved in soon after. Stratholme burns to this day. Early history. After the Troll Wars and King Thoradin's reign of Arathor, many humans expanded the nation, settling in the northern lands of Lordaeron, formerly ruled by the Amani forest trolls. These humans populated the Eastwild some 2,700 years before the Dark Portal and founded new Arathi settlements. The Church of the Holy Light, with its origins tracing back to the chaos of the Troll Wars, was founded some centuries later in Lordaeron. It became a predominant human religion, and the church constructed temples and shrines throughout the human lands. Among the oldest and most revered of these holy sites were the temples in the Eastwild, including Stratholme. The region eventually fell under the sway of the kingdom of Lordaeron. In the days when the city thrived, it was known for producing holy water capable of cleansing even the darkest magics. Second War. Stratholme was the second largest city within the kingdom of Lordaeron, matched only by the capital. At the beginning of the Second War, Stratholme, specifically the Alonso Chapel, was the location where the Archbishop Alonso Vaol founded the Holy Order of the Knights of the Silver Hand and inducted its first 5 members, including Uther the Lightbringer and Saidan Dadrohan. Prior to the burning of Quel'Thalas, Turalyon, Alleria Windrunner, Khadgar and their army disembarked near Stratholme and went to Quel'Thalas. During the Second War, renegade Alderac soldiers and sailors were brought here to be restrained until they could be escorted to capital city for interrogation. Stratholme was also an important port town and the chief source of Alliance oil in the north. While the city was preparing to deliver massive amounts of oil to the kingdoms in western Lordaeron, the Horde sabotaged its refineries and oil platforms to halt the shipment and then destroyed the city. With the destruction of Stratholme, the Alliance supply lines to Quel'Thalas were severed. Of blood and honor. The city was also where one of the original paladins, Tyrion Fordring, was tried for treason against the Alliance for defending the orc Adric in the Hall of Justice. The trial was conducted by Uther the Lightbringer himself and overseen by various leaders of the Alliance. Tyrion was found guilty, stripped of his powers, and was exiled from the Alliance lands. The following day, the city came under attack by a small but well-trained band of orcs under the command of the young war chief Thrall, determined to save Adric. Amidst the chaos, Tyrion and Adric escaped into the countryside. Third War. Just before the Third War, the plague of undeath sweeping over Lordaeron reached Stratholme in infected shipments of grain from Andoral. The populace, unaware of the plague, baked and consumed the infected grain, unknowingly sealing their fates. The dreadlord Mal'Ganis had chosen Stratholme for some specific reasons. It was heavily populated and was the Eastwold's most important city, strategically and economically. It was also a holy site, being the Silverhand Paladin Order's birthplace. If Stratholme fell to the plague and became an undead stronghold, Lordaeron would lose their control over Eastwold. Soon after, as the first undead started to rise, Prince Arthas, Uther the Lightbringer, Jaina Proudmoore, and a contingent of soldiers arrived at Stratholme, but soon realized the city had already been infected. Arthas believed that the only way to prevent Stratholme from becoming a bastion of the Scourge was to purge the city, and so the prince ordered his comrades to kill the plagued but not yet turned citizens. For Arthas, this was as much of an act of mercy as it was a strategic decision. If the populace of Stratholme knew they were about to turn into undead monsters that would attack everyone they loved, what would they prefer? Arthas knew if he contracted the plague, he would rather die a clean death as a free-willed human than a mindless walking corpse. Most of the soldiers and allies, including Jaina and Uther and his paladins, chose not to help Arthas, thinking his purge was madness. The prince and some soldiers, however, went on. Fire engulfed the city while ash and ember billowed through the streets. Screams were heard and the blood of innocents ran thick along the cobblestones. Almost the entirety of Stratholme's population was massacred by them along with the undead. Amid the chaos, Arthas confronted Mal'Ganis, but the dreadlord told him to seek him out in Northrend, fleeing from the site. With that, Arthas gathered his forces, leaving the city while fire swept over Stratholme's ruins. Days later, Jaina and Uther returned. To their shock, it was even worse than what they had expected, as bodies littered the streets and much of the city was burned to a husk. At some point, the undead Scourge swept through Stratholme, and the Knights of the Silverhand manufactured holy water to use against the invaders. They stored it inside small crates along with other vital supplies and distributed them throughout the city. Unfortunately, the citizens turned into Scourge reinforcements before the supplies could ever be used, and the city fell under the control of the Scourge. At some point, the human Rust Frostwhisper arrived to Stratholme and pledged his soul to the Lich King, being raised as a Lich. Once the scourging of Lordaeron had ended, after the Death Knight Arthas had been called back to Northrend, the Lich Kel'Thuzad became the leader of the undead in the city and positioned his floating fortress, the necropolis Naxxramas, above the plagued forest near the ruined city. Ashbringer. After the Third War, the ever-burning city was invaded by the remains of the Knights of the Silverhand. The group consisted of Brigitte Apprentice, Alexandros Mograine with his sons Tarion and Renault, as well as Satan, Tathhoran and Tylen Fordring. Feeling as if they were in a maze, they were soon ambushed by the undead. During the battle, Tarion was hit by dark magic and Satan was separated from the rest of the knights only to be killed by the Nathrashim Balnazar, who subsequently possessed his body in order to pose as the Lord Commander. Soon the paladins regrouped and escaped the city. Later, Renault, under the guidance of Satan, tricked Alexandros and Fairbanks into sending them to Stratholme to rescue Darion from danger. The two charged to the bridge leading to Stratholme, but soon became trapped by the Scourge coming from the city as well from the opposite side. World of Warcraft. Stratholme was the largest stronghold held by the Scourge in all of Lordaeron. Leading the Undead forces in the city was a former noble turned Death Knight by the name of Baron Rivendare, who coordinated the efforts of the Lich King in the Blacklands, where he constantly battled the forces of the Scarlet Crusade and the Ancient Dawn. However, one small area in Stratholme remained under the control of the living, the Scarlet Bastion, from where the Grand Crusader, Satan Tathrohan, himself led the crusade against the Scourge. However, the Crusaders' fanaticism led them to believe that any who were not members were corrupted by the Undead and had to be destroyed. As a result, the Ancient Dawn sent adventurers to kill the Grand Crusader. To their surprise though, they discovered that the Grand Crusader had in fact been dead for years, having been impersonated by the Dreadlord Balnazar. They eventually overcame the demon, however, leaving the remnants of the Scarlet Crusade to deal with the Scourge alone. Cataclysm. Balnazar, having suffered a bitter defeat, set his human form and killed all the Crusaders in the western portion of the city, raising them into undead and calling them the Risen. On the eastern portion of Stratholme, Baron Rivendare, having travelled to Naxxramas, was replaced by his son, the fallen paladin Aureus Rivendare. Crusade Commander Eligor Dawnbringer, Master Craftsman William, Packmaster Stonebruiser, Crusade Commander Corvax, and Archmage Angela dos Santos from the Brotherhood of the Light offered rewards to adventurers to help them end these menaces. After killing both leaders, the Arching Crusade attacked the remaining undead and took control of the ruined city, making Alonso Chapelle and Scarlet Bastion their bases, though only for a time as the undead still roamed its streets. Legion. During the Burning Legion's third invasion, the city was invaded by the Knights of the Ebon Blade in order to retrieve the saddle of Deathcharger's Reins. The Death Knights fought against a patchwork horror and a ghost named Vivian's Lament. The reformed Knights of the Silver Hand and their High Lord traveled to Stratholme for the city's holy water in order to purify Aureus Rivendare's mount Shadowmane, which was then in the hands of the Death Knight Raemian, the Soul Taker, who wanted to spread the black once more in order to create the glowing Reins of the Golden Charger. They took control of the Elder Square from the Eastwall Gate service entrance, clearing the area of any undead present, and used Alonso Chapelle as a base of operations in the Dead City. The remaining Scourge members and Raemian were killed, and the Silver Hand resolved to keep a closer eye on Stratholme. Battle for Azeroth. During the Fourth War, the Scourge activity increased in the ruined city, and the Arching Crusade detected a new threat. Sean Wilkers and the Adventurer worked on clearing the Scourge out of the Stratholme service entrance. They were successful, but they also found two shadowy figures in the slaughterhouse who used necromantic magic on Brightmere and escaped. Exploring Azeroth. Following the Fourth War, Matthias Shaw reported that for a dead city there are still living people inside who manage to survive as they can, most probably the Arching Crusade and the Silver Hand, who continue to control and protect parts of the city, respectively the Scarlet Bastion in the Crusader Square and the Alonso Chapelle in the Elder Square. And so Stratholme remains a haunting reminder reminder of what was lost and what still lingers. A city once devoted to the light, now claimed by shadow and fire. Whether you walk its cursed streets for the lore, the loot, or the legendary Deathcharger Reins, one thing is certain, its story will never be forgotten. In the next episode, we'll step through the dark portal and explore the Burning Crusade, an expansion filled with unforgettable locations and some of the most sought-after legacy mounts in the game, from the haunted halls of Karazhan to the sun-drenched beauty of Magister Therese, the shadowed secrets of Seth